ground would, because in the forest the leaves don't get picked up.
No.
I thought that the leaves were beneficial to the grass and the ground and all that. So and
well, save it.
Save because it. I wasn't breaking the leaves. You know.
Oh, I heard you went live.
Break your leaves. Oops.
Oops. I saw.
Yes, you did.
I'm gonna mute it. Hello, everybody. Just really quick, because we do have a really good topic tonight. We are at 410 subscribers. Woohoo! Can I just say that I don't like the way that the newer videos are being done? I feel like they're not necessarily bad. They're just super. Yes. Okay, guys, try that again. We are sitting at 410 subscribers on the main channel. Thank you. That is amazing. Love it. We are at 29 on the second channel. Love that. So today we're talking about leaf litter and stems in your yard. It's not very pretty. And I don't think you need to keep all of the leaves on your trees, or not on the trees, but in your yard. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Because it's unmuted. If you can't hear me now, you need to turn up the volume on your so what we do is we have pockets where the leaves are not raked up. In my hosta bed, the leaves are left to be there. In my dad's raised beds, the leaves are allowed to be there. Amongst the trees and places, the leaves are allowed to stay. So it's not like it's not muted. leaf litter is a good thing, but you want to make sure that you're not going to get in trouble by your HOA or your municipality. But it is important for wildlife. So leaves left in places provide hiding places for insects to overwinter. Leaves left on the ground provide food for decomposers, such as earthworms and millipedes. You can rake them up and you can put them into your compost. It's not muted.
Oh, there's no sound, Charlie.
I don't know. It's not muted.
I had you for a few minutes and then you were gone again.
I would say restart. Go back in because it's not muted.
All right, I'll try again.
Okay. Can you all hear me? It is really low. What's up with that? Guys, hold on. Okay. Sorry about that. It's always the phone. Always. You can recycle the leaves. You know, mow them, put them into the mower, chop them up, whatever, and put that into your compost. If you have aphids, one thing you can do is provide hiding places. Those hiding places give the predators that eat the aphids a place to hide. Salamanders may also venture into that leaf litter. Birds are going to rummage through the leaf litter looking for a feast. Ladybugs, fireflies, and other animals also will make use of that bedding, and they're going to overwinter within that leaf litter. Also, butterflies and moths may overwinter in the leaf litter. Probably more moths than butterflies, but it's possible. A lot of animals are going to rely on that leaf litter, so where possible, leave it. It also provides insulation as well as traps moisture, which we've already talked about. Leaf litter can also help suppress weeds in the garden. Now, consider the following, if you will. How many of us use gas-powered mowers to collect and shred the leaves? In my household, we do. How many of us use gas-powered leaf blowers? We don't. Possibly. Mice, though, will also tunnel underneath the snow. I don't know how much mice use the leaf litter. That I don't know. They're more apt to use tunnels made by other animals. Because if they're out in the open, they're apt to get preyed on. So, using your mower to pick up the leaves, and your leaf blowers, those put out exhaust, which then puts exhaust into the air. Fossil fuels are being put out there, like we talked about. Your city probably collects leaves for compost, which is amazing. You can actually buy that compost for your garden. In most places, unfortunately, not all leaf litter and yard debris actually makes it into compost. And at times actually gets put into landfills. According to the National Wildlife Federation, leaves and yard waste accounts for 13% of our solid waste that does end up in landfills, and that equals around 33 million tons a year. So that becomes an issue because when that breaks down, it produces methane, which goes into the air to some extent. Then consider the trucks that have to drive around and pick up those leaves, which puts more chemicals into the air. Now, I'm not suggesting that we take jobs away from people. I am not suggesting that at all. What I am suggesting is us being smarter with our leaf litter and other yard waste. Now, I personally, in my little tiny garden space, I've already mentioned this, but leave the leaves where they're at. Now, my dad gets on his riding lawnmower and he collects the leaves and shreds them up, and then he actually dumps those most of the time into the compost. Now, in your garden, you're going to have plants. This happens to be not a this is not a native, this is a, as far as I know, it's a native plant. This is a hyssop. Hyssops are in the mint family, and you can tell any mint because it has a square stem, and only mints have a square stem. The reason I'm showing you this is because these provide two things. One, this stem is too small for bees to use, but if you are out there and you trim your trees, you can take the first 15 inches or 20 inches of that, stick it into the ground, hollow it out a little bit, the stick, if it's hollow inside, the bees will use it. If this were bigger, the bees might actually use it. But we are going to talk tomorrow about something else that these are good for. But I'm going to talk about it now. We need to switch from using a lot of non-native plants to using native plants in our landscaping. I believe this is native, but what's nice is the birds can feed on this if the seeds are big enough. And I can tell you that in the summer, towards late summer, is when this starts to flower. It is covered in bumblebees and butterflies, which is good. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. Another thing that you can do, if you do have natives or even like sunflowers, is those foods are going to be good for the birds during the winter. So again, different plants scattered throughout the garden are a good thing. And we'll talk about that more tomorrow. But stems like this, leaf litter. I don't know if you can see that. That's my leaf litter. Again, this is going to trap humidity. It's going to provide some insulation. If you were to go out there even now and lift up the leaf litter in your yard, you would probably find animals in it. Again, plants are amazing. This happens to be boneset. Again, this is a plant that blooms in late summer. And it has really tiny seed heads on them. The birds will eat this. And I believe the seeds are scattered by the wind. I believe. At least that's what I think I'm looking at. Could also be leftover flowers, but this is not bad if it's left. One thing you want to do in your garden is don't clip your stuff right away once it dies back. Leave it till the weather gets warm, a couple weeks into the warmth, and then chop them down to the ground and put this into your compost. Or leave it somewhere where the animals can get to it. You can buy bee boxes. They're like this, maybe. And they have hollow pieces of wood, like stems, in it. And the leaf miner bees. There are bees that will use those hollow spaces to actually deposit their eggs and whatever else. So that's a good thing. If the bees can drill into a stem, they're going to do that. And they're going to put in their babies. So that's why if you do have bigger stems in your yard, maybe not chop those down right away, because you could have bees in them. I totally support the use of native plants, and there are you want to be careful. And again, we're going to talk about this tomorrow, but since I brought it up today, we're going to cover it. Don't go out to Lowe's or any place where you can buy seed mixes that say native on them, because again, news for you, a lot of the plants that they say are in a native mix potentially could not be native. And again, we're going to talk about this a little bit later also, but be mindful of what is in your yard and what plants you bring into your yard, because you don't want to bring in something that is potentially a invasive. Now, we have at least two plants in our yard that are, actually three, that are potentially invasive. Oh, darn it. I forgot Instagram. Gosh darn it. I am so bad at this. So if you have questions, feel free to ask. Oh no. Hold on. Okay. Sorry, YouTube or Instagram. I forgot about you. So, yes. Some of my hints could potentially backfire on you. There's always that possibility. So keep that in mind. But the last thing that you want to do is to make a mess. Now, I can tell you that another really cool thing about using different plants in your yard. Okay, and we'll talk about that tomorrow. But and that's a good point for tomorrow, so remember that. If you have a garden and you have different plants in it, even trees, things like red osier dogwood has a different colored bark that can be decorative during the winter. Something like sycamore, which I know it dumps a bunch of mess in your yard. But it provides sort of a different bark. Can be decorative, and we'll talk about this again tomorrow. But even a plant like the hyssop, which is what this is, will look different in your yard and provide it breaks up the scenery basically. So we have been talking about leaf litter and how it's important. Things like lightning bugs, yeah, and that is one of the drawbacks to having sycamores in your yard is they do make a mess. But again, that bark provides hiding places as well. Just putting that out there. But you can also compost the tree bark. You can play around with stuff. I'm a big advocate for native where possible. And some of the stuff we are going to talk about tomorrow, but it is worth mentioning that the more invasive stuff that you have in your yard, the bigger problems you're going to have in the long run. So that's where it goes back to knowing what is in your yard and what potentially could be turned into a beauty thing. In my area, luckily, we have lots of robins and other birds that are nice enough to drop off seeds. And so I never know from year to year what we're going to get and what we're not going to get. I did not take down my columbine plants this fall because I figured that maybe something will use it. Sometimes you will get cocoons that will come off the trees and onto the ground because they're attached to leaves or whatever. They will pupate on the ground. Also, things like your hawk moths. A lot of them pupate on the ground, so if you get rid of your leaf litter, you could be getting rid of them as well. So something else to consider. So native over anytime that you can use a native plant instead of a non-native is awesome. Things like the hyssop that we just talked about, to even cardinal flower, which if you don't know what that is, it is a really pretty red flower that hummingbirds will feed on. They will feed on columbine too, so if you can get your hands on seeds for that. Having milkweed in your yard. All manners of animals will feed on the milkweed, not just monarch butterflies. So you may get different animals feeding on that. That'll go a long way. Sorry for yawning. My day started early today. So your leaf litter, just in review, if it's on the ground, it's going to trap some humidity, but it's going to provide hiding places for insects to take shelter during the winter. Also, keep in mind that when you have snow on the ground, that snow is actually insulating the ground underneath it from the wind. And so the animals get a little bit of a buffering from that snow. So you'll have leaves, snow, and that helps. Again, we talked a little bit about leaving stems in your garden. I can look out right now and still see these seed heads. Again, this is hyssop. And I can go out, or I can look out my window and see this sticking up, and it does break up the backyard a little bit. And from the window, it actually looks really pretty. But this will be cut back once the weather gets warmer. And it'll be replaced by new plants coming up in the spring and summer. So ways that you can incorporate natives. Anywhere that you can plant. I'm not saying that we need to get rid of the ornamental plants because they're pretty. But, like, for instance, in my hosta bed, I have violets. I actually had some Confederate violets. If you don't know what a Confederate violet is, they are white. The petals are white, and then they have purple lines going into the rest of the plant. So sort of a reverse violet. I also have found white violets, which they look exactly like the little blue ones or purple ones, whatever color you want to call them, except that they're all white, sort of like an albino or a leucistic violet. And occasionally I do get those. You're leaving the plants or leaving the leaves on the ground also will help. As they break down, will add their nutrients to the soil, which is always amazing. So yeah, they also provide food for decomposers, which I talked about already on YouTube, but not on Instagram. So just things to consider. Any questions? I know we're a little short. We're 35 minutes in. So if you do have questions about it, feel free to ask. That's why I'm here. Again, let's just talk about So leaf litter, on top of providing an insulation for the animals that hide in it, leaves on the ground also provide food for the decomposers, like we talked about. It adds add their nutrients to the soil. You can throw them into your compost bin. I recommend, if you're going to do that, to break them up somehow. Also, keep in mind, though, that when you do that, you're taking away hiding places for these animals. You could be providing, if you leave your leaves in the garden, you could be providing a place for salamanders to hide. Probably not snakes, although some salamanders will stay underneath the ground. Birds are going to be rummaging through there to find insects and seeds. Things like fireflies, ladybugs, and other animals potentially could have their eggs amongst the leaf litter. Also, cutting your grass a little bit taller is going to provide places for these animals to also hide. So one of the things that we're doing is we're putting out chemicals on our yards. That causes all kinds of problems, from reducing the fireflies and the ladybugs, and other insects that hide in the leaf litter. So I recommend, if you have a garden, keep the leaves. If you have a tree or an area where you can't get your mower into, I suggest letting the leaves stay where they're at and just doing your best to maintain it. Yeah. So questions, comments. I don't know who else is in because I don't see a name, but feel free to participate if you can. I'm also, if you can't see it on here, I'm also live on Instagram. Instagram is NatureGuyX12, I believe. And you can participate on there if you have it. I thought this was kind of an interesting topic to cover now instead of in the spring, because right now we do have leaves on the ground. And it is important even now because we want to provide that shelter. So tomorrow, live, we're going to be talking about inviting wildlife into your yard. And some of the things that we talked about today are going to do some of that for you. Believe it or not. Planting native and having more variety of plants in your yard also are going to help bring in animals into your yard. But we'll talk about that more tomorrow, but why not bring a little bit of that up today? You can, if you have a big yard, you can even set up branches that fall off the trees, stick them in a place that isn't really obvious, because that provides shelter for birds and other wildlife. Because if a hawk flies into your yard, they may not be able to get into the brush pile to get to your birds. But again, even that is nature carrying out its instincts. Oh my gosh. I must really be tired. And then Tuesday's live, Tuesday's live, we're going to be talking about learning about what is in your yard, because that's super important too. You don't want issues in your yard. That is one thing that can occur. If you don't know what's in your yard, you can't necessarily keep your kids from getting into it. So, important stuff, and we're going to talk about that. Part of that, we're going to be talking about poisonous plants, mushrooms, things like that. So, and I'm not really big on mushrooms, so don't ask me. Because I'm going to tell you it's poisonous, even if it's not. But that is me because I don't want to be responsible for you dying and getting sick. That is not fun. It's not bueno. That is my limit to my Spanish, by the way. Now we are down to our last 15 minutes. This is usually when we get people in that want to talk. I forgot to do my poll for the day. And again, not everybody can allow for leaves to be all over in their yard. But in places, you're going to help. It helps, even if it's just in a few areas. Those few areas can be vital habitat. It's what we call a micro habitat or micro environment. And you're going to get lots of little animals that are going to be living in that leaf litter, mostly insects and stuff like that. And that is perfectly okay. It's okay to have insects in your yard. I think we get paranoid about that because everybody thinks that insects are bad, but it's actually in reverse. Some insects are good, and you want them in your yard. Like firefly larvae are actually good things to have in your yard. So are native ladybugs. Because they actually feed on aphids. And other insect pests as well. Which again is a good thing. By the way, if you're here and you have not given the chat, the live, a like, you're doing it wrong. You're cheating me. Make sure that you put into the live where you're from if you're seeing this afterwards. Carol, I know where you live, so you don't have to. You're lucky. Subscribe if you're watching this later because that helps me out too. My goal is 500 subscribers by March or by the end of March, whichever comes first, and I think we'll make it. Maybe by April, guys, but let's get there. I will continue to be posting. I know things have been a little bit crazy on the posting, but it's stress. I don't know what's going to happen once I lose my if I lose my phone, but we'll worry about that when it happens. I'm hoping I can still use the camera on it. But we'll see. You guys are awesome. Love y'all. We are down to 15 minutes, by the way. So if you have questions, questions, comments, change of topic, whatever, put it into the chat. You guys are quiet this evening, and I'm tired of talking. So help me. If you have thoughts, throw it in. Another really cool thing that you can do is plant ferns. Ferns will grow where you have shade. There are natives that will grow in the shade, so if you do have shade, there are natives that can help fill in the blanks. I talked about stems for insects. Elderberry is a really good plant for that because as the plant gets older, it loses some of its pith, and the bees can actually use that to their advantage. So something to think about. And the birds will eat the fruits on it. I know trees can be a pain, but they provide nesting areas. Even dead trees provide nesting areas. And they're actually a vital part of the ecosystem at that. So, if they're not in a place where they're a danger to you, keep them. Because woodpeckers are going to use them, believe it or not. Wood ducks will use them. Squirrels, other owls will use them. So yeah, they're not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, they could be, but nature is pretty amazing. And so my goal is to help you learn that. If you get nothing else from my lives and from my videos, nature is amazing, even though it can be a little weird at times. At times it can be really weird. Trust me. Trust me. I guess we're not going to get any people coming into live unless they come in the next few minutes. I'm sort of surprised. Tuesday's live, you guys blew it out of the water this week. Thank you for coming in and participating. It was amazing. Would love to see more of my subscribers coming in. I know in some places it is early morning hours. I apologize for that, but if you are wide awake at 2 a.m., feel free to come in and participate. Love to have you. Tomorrow, live is all about how we can bring wildlife into the yard. So we're going to be learning about tricks and tips to do that. Things that work, things that don't work. The problem is you can't really pick and choose what's going to come in. So, yeah, there is that. So, I got asked recently, and some of you may have seen the comment, I don't know. If you put questions into the comment section in videos, they are not going to be answered in text. They will be answered in a short. I recently learned how to do that, and I'm going to take advantage of that. Just because it's a different way of doing it. I'm all about that. So that will be happening. I'm still really looking at a good AI package that will let me do pictures, sort of like I've been using in some of my lives lately, or not lives, but in some of my videos lately. Google Slides is awesome. They do some of the best pictures. My problem is the program that converts them into video only allows for 4 seconds per slide. And that is way too fast for a video. So if you have ideas on a better system for that, let me know. Also, if you are coming in to chat and you can't see the chat, look in the top right corner of your browser and you should see a thing that says view open an app. Click on that and it should bring you into live. Also, you can join live. I try to go live on Instagram at the same time that I am in live on YouTube. And I believe my name on there is Nature Guy X12. If I remember right. So yeah. Yes, it's Nature Guy X12 on Instagram. So you have two ways that you can hit me up. Any questions or comments, because we are down to our last 7 minutes. Again, you can also always message me on the community page. I think you can put stuff in it. I will be doing stuff in there. Try to get in there every day or every other day to put stuff up. There will be polls and who knows what else. I'm probably not using YouTube as fully as I can. I need to come up with some new lives because I'm running out of ideas. I don't want to do stuff that this is my chance. Lives are my chance to sort of teach you how you can do stuff. And we will be doing more discussions on stuff that you can do. Also, potentially ideas of stuff that you can do with your kids or grandkids that is nature orientated or science orientated. So we'll be discussing some of that too. I would like to bring in some guests from time to time. I just don't know who to grab. So, also, if I can wing it, we may be doing once the weather warms up, because I'm a chicken when it comes to the cold. I don't like it. Also, if there is a poll up and you can access it, feel free to do so. I forgot to go live chat. I forgot to do that. Don't ask me why I didn't do it, but I didn't do it. You guys are always invited to come into lives or onto the videos to leave comments. I love comments. Comments are awesome. When you, just so you know, when you like a video, that like actually helps other people to find the video or the live. Your subscriptions always help. I go live on Tuesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, all at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time every week. And like I said, we do have some really cool lives that are coming up. I'm going to get out of that for just a second. And let's look at some of the upcoming lives that I have not mentioned. So coming up, we're going to be talking about ways to encourage wildlife to visit your yard, learning what's out there, your pets and wildlife laws that keep you out of trouble, wildlife photography code or wildlife photographer code of honor, hobbies that can help get you outside, know before you buy. So that's going to be looking at the exotic pet trade. Really important. And that is where the ideas for lives end. That should take us through into March, maybe, depending upon what I have planned for Saturdays. So if you have ideas for lives, you can put them in the comment section. You can put them into wherever. Be thinking about ideas for a live for the 500 subscriber thing. I am looking at hopefully maybe getting to the point where I can make money. I am not going to be getting rich off of YouTube, but every little bit helps. So, yeah. Sorry about that. I had to step away for a second. On Instagram, that is. We have 2 minutes. I am not going to be staying on past 8 o'clock. So if you have comments or questions, now is the time to get those out there because, like I said, I am going to be popping off at 8 o'clock. Unless we get somebody in that really wants to chat, and then, yeah. I like these kinds of lives where we're either talking about something that is going to help you as a subscriber or is instructional in some other way, where we actually discuss items of ecological importance. Last live, we actually talked about cloning extinct animals. That was a very good live. If you didn't come in for it, you missed a good live. Just saying. So I'm going to be hunting for possible lives to discuss, possible topics. Whoa, sorry about that. That's probably not good for you or for my Chromebook. Thank you all for coming in. We are down to just a few seconds. If you have not already clicked that like button or subscribed, you are doing it wrong. Yeah, so that's one of the things I am doing tonight is coming up with more live ideas because I'm running short. Okay, so I will see everybody on tomorrow night. Thank you for coming in. Join me tomorrow night because it's going to be a really good live, I hope. Talk to you later. Goodbye.